everyone, my name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. Nugget just headbutted me. Nugget the cat has joined us today. We are cat sitting for someone and Nugget is very unsure of what I am doing on the floor. So she might be in and out of the video and you might hear her meowing because she loves to cause ruckus. So yeah, we're here today to do my July wrap up. I was gonna say TBR for a second. My July wrap up. It is a shorty but a goodie, so we're gonna get through it probably pretty quickly. I read 6 books in the month of July, which is not as much for me, but I'm trying to roll with it. We're just rolling with what comes. So, like always, we're gonna get into the books from the order that I read them, from the first of the month all the way to the end of the month. So let's go ahead and dive in because I have some thoughts about some of these books. First up, we have My Annihilation by Fuminori Nakamura. This is translated from the Japanese by Sam Bett and published by Soho Crime. I was interested in this book because in the blurb, which is very vague, by the way, it tells you almost nothing, it says that it's trying to look into the psychological motivations of a killer. And I think that's very interesting, sort of this nature versus nurture debate, and I like reading it more in fiction than non-fiction. I don't necessarily read a lot of true crime, so fiction tends to work better for me. But yeah, this one did not work for me. Let's see, I can't tell you really anything about the plot because the blurb doesn't give any of the plot away, but it starts with an older gentleman who's seeing a psychologist, and he is starting to basically give an account of crimes that he has committed in his past. It doesn't tell you what the crimes are in the blurb. There are numerous ones, and you sort of go from there. It's starts with that flash forward and then you go back. There is a meta element to this that I did not like. Meta tends to be a hard sell for me. I want it to be very clever and useful, and I feel like in here it's mainly just used as a plot twist device, and I didn't like that. That doesn't give anything away. Me saying that it's meta, that won't give anything away from you, but it is used sort of as a plot twist and I don't like it. And then the other thing that I didn't like about this is it felt very male gazy, and I just don't like reading from a male POV when they are committing atrocities towards women. I don't like reading it from a male POV. I don't get anything out of that. I know that there can be things to get from that perspective, but I personally don't get anything out of it. I don't like reading it. And if I had known that that was the case in here, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. So yeah, this one wasn't for me, and that's okay. They're not all going to be winners, but this type of thing is going to come up later in the book haul. So there's that. But yeah, My Annihilation, not a winner for me this month. It was in fact my least favorite book of the month. Next up, we have No Edges. This is a short story anthology by Two Lines Press in their Calico series, which I very much love and I talk about all the time. This collection is bound together because they are all translated from Swahili into English, and it is in fact the first short story collection to ever be translated from Swahili into English. So that is fantastic. I definitely wanted to pick it up and support it. So these are all surrealist in nature. But I will say, I enjoyed this, but I think it's my least favorite in the Calico series that I've read so far. There was something, well, the storytelling is very parable-like. And again, just not my personal style. This is going to keep coming up throughout this book wrap up, so sorry if it's a bummer. But yeah, I just don't love the parable format very much. It's not my type of thing. But I get that it is an art form in and of itself, and lots of people enjoy that. If you like that type of storytelling, this could definitely be a winner for you. I think the stories themselves were very interesting. It really was just the style that I didn't love as much. To give you a sense of what some of the stories are about, the one that I remember the most is actually about a woman who urinates herself on public transportation and is feeling a lot of shame around it. It's sort of a parable about the masks that we put on in public. And yeah, so that one was probably the one that stands out in my mind the most. There's lots of other interesting ones in here. The other thing about this that I did really enjoy was the cadence. It feels very much like oral storytelling, just written down on the page. The cadence is so bouncy as you're reading it, and I loved that aspect to it. It made it flow really well and just made the writing feel upbeat and jaunty because of the cadence. So kudos to the translators for getting that right. So yeah, that is No Edges, sort of like an okay middle of the road read for me. Next up, we have this chunky girl, and that is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. This is published by St. Martin's Press, and this is the last book that I was reading for the books from my mother-in-law vlog that I was doing. I will link that down below if you would like to see more. But this one is very beloved, and for good reason. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. This is about two sisters during World War II who are thrust into very different circumstances concerning the war. It also has to do with family, both biological and found, and the complicated relationships and tensions that we find ourselves in when we choose to love someone. It's very like heartwarming in that sense, and has a hopeful tone overall, even though there are some devastating things that happen in this. I definitely cried. It has this, yeah, like theme of love at its core that hits you in all the emotional spots that you want it to, and also carries you through some of the devastating bits, because there are devastating bits. So yeah, I enjoyed all of those. I liked that we got the POVs from each of the sisters. I will say one of the things that I didn't love was I liked the perspective from Vianne, who is the older sister, more, and it's the perspective that we get less of in the book. We definitely get more of, oh God, Isabel's story. And she has the more plot heavy story, so I understand why the author made that choice. I was just personally more interested in Vianne, so I wanted more time with her. I think the last 200 pages of this book are great. I think the last 75 pages of this book is spectacular. The first 200 I think needed editing down. For me, it's overly descriptive in the beginning. We just didn't need all of it. And I also think there are some convenient movie magic things that happen in the beginning, particularly with Isabel, that I get we're trying to set her up to have the character arc that she has, but I felt were too over the top. Like, we didn't need her to be that naive in the beginning in order for it to work in the end. So those are the only two little things that I would have personally changed about this, but overall I thought this was fantastic and would highly recommend to people. So that is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. Next up, we have my favorite read of the month, and that is A Simple Passion by Annie Erneaux. This is translated from the French by Tanya Leslie, and it is nonfiction, as Annie Erneaux mostly does. It's published by Seven Stories Press, which, if you're in the US, they publish all of her works. And I haven't even hauled this yet, so you haven't seen me haul it. I didn't have an opportunity to do a book haul in July because I just ran out of time. There were other videos that need to come out first, but you will have a combined July and August book haul where you will be seeing this one in it and another one that I'm about to talk about. So this one is all about an affair that Annie has with a married man. And it's sort of just about the all-consuming nature of love/lust. And the thing about Annie Erneaux is that her writing is so sparse, and I think it works so well for nonfiction writing. I said this about Happening, which I read last month. I think sparse writing in nonfiction, where there's very little adjectives, which is something that she does, it allows things to be more poignant, at least for me, because it's not like the author is trying to convince me to feel one way or another. It's just like, let me tell you this story, and I still feel all the feelings because of the way that she can describe her own emotions. She is very reflective and insightful about herself, and I think it really shows, and I think that's what it works so well about her storytelling. So that is Simple Passion by Annie Erneaux, and it was definitely my favorite read of the month. So that one was 5 stars. Next up, we have another sort of beloved book, I would say, and that is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. And this one is translated from the Korean by, let's see whom. It's translated from the Korean by Deborah Smith. And this one is published by Hogarth Books. The cover is gorgeous. I found the receipt in here for when I bought this. I bought it in 2017, so I have had it for a very long time. I'm happy I finally got to it. This follows a woman who, or I shouldn't say follows, it centers on a woman who decides to become a vegetarian based on a dream that she has. And all of the people around her really can't make sense of her going vegetarian, and they start to spiral around her. She also spirals, so it's not just them. This is sort of wacky and bizarre. And I will say, this did not live up to the hype for me. I don't know if it's because I read it maybe a little past its time or what, but again, this is the other book that I referenced to earlier that has a lot of male POVs that just feel icky and gross, and I just don't get anything out of reading that. Like, I don't need to hear about a man who can't stop fantasizing about his sister-in-law and is trying to manipulate her into ways of having sex with him. Like, I don't need that. Like, I'm just not going to get anything from that. And it just takes me out of the story because I'm like, did we really have to do this to get this point across? But so I will say there were parts about this book that I did think were very well done. It was just also juxtaposed to parts that I don't think needed to be there. The things that I liked about this was I thought it had a really fascinating take on nature and the dangerousness of nature. I really liked that aspect. I think it was coming from a point of view of like nature is so powerful and sometimes we don't fully recognize how powerful it is, and sort of respect it with the amount of reverence that we should. Loved all of that conversation. I even think some of the conversation around like gender roles and artists and who has the right to make art and things like that, all of those were so good. I just wish it wasn't from male POVs and didn't contain all of the sexual manipulation that was going on from multiple male POVs. You get multiple male POVs in this, and it was like relentless. And again, that might very well be the point. It's just not, I mean, I just don't need to read that. So yeah. Look for other reviews from this from other people that aren't me, because this just wasn't something that I was ever gonna love. I think there are things that are really smart about it, but things that I just personally weren't to my taste. So that is The Vegetarian. And then the final book that I read in the month of July is another one I haven't hauled yet, and this is Kappa, and this is by Ryūnosuke Akutagawa, and it's translated by Allison, Markin, Powell, and Lisa Hofmann-Kuroda. It's written sideways on the title, so I need to bend it. And it's translated from the Japanese. This is published by New Directions. This was one that I was anticipating for the year, so I think it was in my most recent highly anticipated video. And this one I very much enjoyed. It follows a man, I think he's unnamed. Oh, he's called Patient Number 23. And this is another one where it's a male POV. He's in a psychiatric hospital at the time, and it starts with this kind of flash forward with him there, and he is telling the story, and you sort of get a flashback. So lots of things interconnecting for me this month. This man is talking about a time where he fell down a hole and entered the world of the Kappas. The Kappas are these creatures who look very much like this creature on the front. And they are said to be very hard to catch And so he tries to catch them and stumbles down this hole and enters their city. Once he is there, he starts to make friends with different Kappas in the town, and you get to see lots of different perspectives of how people are living. This is very much a commentary on the Japanese political system. It has sort of like archetypal characters to represent different political leanings within the country, and I enjoyed that. I could get down with the overt nature of that. Yeah, it just has lots of really quirky, for lack of a better word, takes on like what sort of successful society could look like. And overall really enjoyed. I thought the world building was actually really cool. It's, I don't know if this would be considered fantasy or like magical realism, probably magical realism, but the world building was very interesting. It has lots of conversation around shame and art and philosophy and knowledge in general. And yeah, it was very interesting. It's really short. I would definitely recommend if you like somebody's sort of just like musings. It's very thinky about politics and culture and what implications that might have on us as individuals and a society as a whole. So yeah, that was Kappa, and that was my month in reading. So I definitely had a good amount of books that just weren't for me this month, which I think is part of why I read a little bit less, but I'm already back on the upswing. So I'm filming this on the 4th of August, and I've already read some very good books so far this month. So we're looking up, and I can't wait to share them with you. But please let me know what you have thought of any of these books that I've read, if you've read them or if you're interested in any of them, and tell me your favorite book from the month of July, because Lord knows I need some winners. So let me know your favorite books, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.